Welcome back, HC Nation. It's Zach Edwards here with another episode of the Adventure Box Podcast. That's right, we're going everything history, and we're going to have fun doing it. Now, it's all brought to you by Historical Conquest. That's our game. It's a physical card game. We're actually digitalizing it now, but it's a physical card game where you're just playing for fun, much like they would the game of Risk, but instead of playing with nameless, faceless little figures, you're playing with cards of actual people from history. And while you're playing, you might not know anything about history, but you're actually going to learn it by just having fun. And you don't even want to learn about history. That's fine. Just play the game for being fun, and you're going to be learning it at the same time. Two birds, one stone, right? That's what I always say. That's right. I don't want to go out and use all my stones for killing so many birds and losing them. And I think I'm going on a rant. Okay, let's go back to what I was talking about. Now, howdy, Trailblazers. Welcome to the Adventure Box Podcast. This is a podcast where we saddle up and ride through the dusty trails of history, one muddy bootprint, I guess, at a time. So I'm your host, Captain Zach Edwards, and today we're talking about the Western expansion, but not just the wagon wheels and the gold dust. Woo, I would like some of that. We're talking about the men and the White House, basically who made it happen. That's right, the men in the White House. Now, at this time, there's no women. Actually, there's never been a woman in the White House as the president. Not yet. Maybe sometime. We just gotta find the right one. Okay. Anyways, I'm getting off on these little rants. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're gonna go over two things today. The first one is the presence between Andrew Jackson and James K. Polk. These are like Van Buren. We talked about him a little bit last time. We have Harrison. We have Tyler. And how basically they helped push westward. So expanded the United States westward. And then we will zero in on the man with the master plan. His name was James K. Polk. He was Mr. Manifest Destiny himself. So grab a map, warm up your horses, and let's ride to the presidential trail and the westward expansion. So first off, let's set a stage. Okay, let's think. Let's get your footsteps in the gravel, hearing maybe the crackling of campfires. I'm going to tell you a story. So yeah, on Monday, we talked about Jackson, how he had blazed a brutal trail with the Indian Removal Act. Not just the Cherokee, but all other nations that were basically east of the Mississippi. And he pushed them west of the Mississippi. He left office in 1837 with native tribes displaced, but also the Cherokees not moving. Well, it was at this point that a treaty was signed that they had to move. And because the treaty was signed and $5 million given to the Cherokee, they were being forced out now by the military because that treaty was signed. The Senate ratified it, and the courts finally upheld it because initially in 1832, the courts were on the Cherokee side. But with that treaty, that was no longer on the Cherokee side because they signed this agreement. Now, again, it was not all the Cherokee. It was only a portion of them, and they betrayed the rest of them. So there's a lot of internal grief that was caused by that. But they were able to, they moved west, and so did a lot of the settlers. Now, around the same time, about 1820 to 1830, Mexico had actually won its independence from Spain. And the first thing they did is said, hey, people from the United States, come here. That's right, listen up. We got land. Come down here in Texas, take some more land. But you got to follow the rules. You got to convert to Catholicism. You got to speak Spanish. And whatever you do, no slavery. That's our rule. That's one of our rules. No slavery in all of Mexico. Texas was a territory of Mexico. So, for this reason, they actually had to follow some rules, and they didn't want to agree with that. So the people didn't want to follow the rules. They wanted to bring their slaves over with them into Texas, and that was not all right with Mexico. Plus, a lot of people weren't converting to Catholicism. They weren't following other rules. So this is when Santa Anna, who was the president, decided to take action and attack the Alamo. After the Alamo and the 200 people that defended it died, that was a rallying call for the Texians to fight back. And they took all of Texas with them. So they took Texas, and now they've got this big piece of land. 9 years later, after governing it themselves, they said, hey, United States, we want to be part of you. We don't want Mexico to try to take us over at some point because they're still a rebellious province. And the United States says, yes, we will make you our 28th state. Okay, so I'm going to jump in a little bit ahead. Let's go back to Van Buren. Okay, so Van Buren, he was the reluctant expansionist. He did not actually want to expand as much as he was just the political protege of Mr. Jackson. So he was also known as the Little Magician. I don't know why. I don't actually have that in my notes, but I do have that. He was the Little Magician. Okay. But he didn't know exactly what he was actually walking into. Because in 1837, when he took over, there was a panic in the economy. It's called the Panic of 1837. They worked really hard on that name. Okay. It was a full-blown economic crash. People were losing their farms, losing their jobs. Everything was going haywire. Their money is gone. Land speculation had spiraled out of control. Van Buren, he was cautious. He didn't want a war with Mexico over Texas. And he feared that expansion might stir up slavery and slave tensions. So when Texas asked to be annexed in 1837, he said, not yet. That's right. He did not accept Texas right away. He didn't oppose expansion entirely. Well, so he wasn't like Andrew Jackson, who he's like pushing people to go west. Van Buren was all about stability, not bold land grabs. He wanted to solidify what he had. Still, westward migration continued. The settlers continued to want to go west. And also, this meant they were clearing out more Native American land. And also, at this point, you also had the Oregon Trail start. So Van Buren may not have driven the wagons, but he didn't block the roads either. So, that's one. Next one, William Henry, the third president in this time of basically early manifest destiny. William Henry Harrison was a war hero from Tippecanoe, which was a Native American battle that happened against the United States. He was elected in 1840. That's right. So with Van Buren, he only lasted 4 years. He wanted more, but he could not get it. So in 1840, they hired William Henry William Henry Harrison. His campaign was all log cabins and hard cider. Pure frontier spirit. Everyone loved him that wanted to go west. But, sadly, he caught pneumonia. And after giving a 2-hour inauguration, you know what inauguration is? It's where a president goes out and talks to the people on the very first day of his presidency. Spent that 2 hours out there in the cold temperatures. Rain and cold did not mix. And within 31 days, he died. That's right. The shortest living presidency ever. And his vice president, John Tyler, took over. Now, Tyler, he was a Southern Democrat. He was running on a Whig ticket. And boy, did he shake things up. Tyler loved expansion. He wanted Texas. He thought it was America's destiny. But the Whigs, who he sided with because he wasn't running as the Democrat, the Whigs, they weren't so much about Texas. His own party basically disowned him. That's right, John Tyler was disowned. So Tyler basically went rogue. He was like, you know what? In his final year, he pushed for Texas annexation as hard as possible. He even tried to negotiate directly with the Republic of Texas. And just before he left office in 1845, he pushed a resolution through Congress to annex Texas. And boom, mission accomplished. But what about Mexico? They were furious. The U.S. Was basically on the verge of war with Mexico. U.S. versus Mexico. But it wasn't until the next president took the reins that Manifest Destiny, the movement west, would go full throttle. His name was none other than James K. Polk. But just like me, I always forget to do this. Okay, this is Martin Van Buren. President Martin Van Buren. Then came William Henry Harrison. Okay? Gave a 2-hour speech, thin as a bone, died 31 days later. So came his vice president, John Tyler. John Tyler, they didn't like him as much. At least his party didn't like him. Betrayed him. He betrayed them too. And so there was a lot of fighting. So he didn't get reelected. But James K. Polk, he'd come in. That's this guy. Very, very suave. Very much knew exactly what people wanted to hear. And yeah. Okay, let me tell you a little bit more about him and his manifest destiny. Because here comes James K. Polk, often called, this is interesting, most successful one-term president in all American history. Really? Well, 2 questions come up. Why is he just one term? And 2, how is he the most successful? Polk was a dark horse candidate in 1844 in that election. No one expected him to win. But he made one thing very clear. He said this one thing. He said this. He said, I will expand the United States, and I will do it in 4 years. And guess what? He did. So let's break this down. What did Polk and his manifest destiny do? I got a checklist for you. Okay, so checklist number 1. Annex Texas. He steps in. It's already in play. Texas officially joined the Union in December of 1845, thanks to the groundbreaking work of John Tyler, his predecessor, the VP of Harrison, who had died. But Polk didn't just seal the deal there. It was a spark that lit a powder keg in Mexico. But Polk was ready for it. So, for years, this is checklist number 2. We're going to say the settling the Oregon Territory. So, when Polk was in the election, his slogan, his specific slogan, this is how he won, was 54-40 or fight, which means he wanted the whole region up to the latitude of 54 and 40. What does that mean? Okay, so let's go. Okay, so in here, latitude 54 and 40. Come on, pictures? Okay, this was his slogan right here. 54 and 40 or fight. Yeah, you see 2 people here. Okay, you've got Britain and you've got the United States. Britain and Polk, both about to attack each other. So this is what it means. This was disputed territory. All of this. Now Polk, he didn't want just down here. You know, this is where Washington State is. No, he wanted all up here. Now, they weren't going to do that. Canada was not about to give it over. I should say, Britain was not about to give it over. Remember, we were frenemies. We were always attacking each other. The American Revolution, War of 1812 just ended a few years before. The British, they weren't willing to do that. Now, down here, the British claimed all this land, all the way down to the 42nd latitude. Okay, so that's great. But what Polk was saying is we were going to get it all the way up to the 54 and 40. Wow, that's a lot more than you expect. So he wanted all this land to be part of the United States, instead of straight across like we have it today. Instead of war, though, Polk negotiated a treaty. In 1846, the U.S. and the British, agreed to split Oregon at the 49th parallel, 49th latitude. That's this line right here. And that's where it sits today. Given our modern day Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So all three of those were basically given over in a treaty. Now, here's the amazing diplomacy that Polk was able to do. He knew Donald J. Trump, president right now. One of his best books out there, most sold books out there, is called The Art of the Deal. In there, and he shows us in all of his presidencies, which is really interesting to look at. If you look at his presidencies and all of the things that he wants to do, first thing he said when he was coming in, he said, we're going to take back Panama. Well, so with that being said, he wanted to take back Panama. However, he had to do it. Well, Panama didn't like that. But what was happening down in Panama? In the Panama Canal, you had Chinese companies taking over large portions of the running of the Panama Canal. The price of a U.S. ship to get through the Panama Canal was rising extremely high. Now, the United States actually built the Panama Canal. Many thousand people died while building it. And then during Carter, we just gave it over to Panama. Might have been the right thing to do, but ever since then, they had been breaking the treaty. So Trump said, we're going to take it over. Panama's like, no, you're not. We agree with sovereignty. Trump's like, that's fine. We're still taking it over. And so what happened? They negotiated a brand new deal down there. That's right. A new deal. One that they're actually both working on. And they're both agreeing to. What then happened? The treaty, the tariffs. Trump said, take China for instance. We're doing 145% tariffs. Well, for a historical conquest, that's horrible if we print in China. That means if something costs $1, it now costs $2.45. So for every dollar that we were printing in China, it now cost us $2.45, almost 1.5 times more than we were paying before. And so they popped it up. And that lasted for less than a month. It's like 4 weeks. So maybe about a month. Now they just finally said that there is a deal struck between China and the United States. Now, the information there is not yet apparent of exactly what that means, but we're hoping that it'll bring down the tariffs. So the art of the deal with Donald J. Trump is to ask for a lot more or expect a lot more than he's going to get back. So when you go to the negotiation table, you bring it down to the middle ground. So the people are saying, no, this is where we're at. And you say, no, we're coming up here. The people are here. It's like, well, we don't have as much power, so we're willing to come up to here. And Donald Trump's like, well, I like win-wins. Done deal. And that's how he deals. The same thing happened with Polk. He said, I want the 54 and 40. Well, Britain said, we're not giving you the 54 and 40, but we could give you the 49 if you can agree to that. Polk's like, done deal. He actually did the exact same thing that Trump does now. So, that solved another issue. First one, annexing Texas. Check that one off. Second one, settle the Oregon Territory. Check that one off. Okay, he's still got more. Next, the Mexican-American War. So Polk sent troops into this disputed territory between Texas and Mexico. And when fighting broke out, he asked Congress to declare war. From 1846 to 1842, U.S. forces pushed deep into Mexico, even getting down all the way to Mexico City. The result was the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This was the U.S. gaining California, Nevada, Utah, and most of Arizona, and also part of Colorado. Oh, it keeps going. And also New Mexico, and also part of Wyoming. That's a lot of land. In total, over 500 square miles, or sorry, 500,000 square miles. That's about another third of the Mexican territory. And that's like a third of the U.S. lower 48 states. So that is basically the Mexican secession. Polk paid Mexico $15 million, the same that he paid Napoleon for the Louisiana Purchase as part of the treaty. Though many called it an insult. It was insultingly low, the amount of money. Now, interesting enough, that was number 3. Check that one off the list. He now has all those other states. So, most accomplished president? Yeah, pretty darn much. He accomplished a lot in that one term. But we're not done. The next thing he did was he reformed the Treasury and tariffs. Okay, yeah, you know that word because that's what Trump's doing right now. Tariffs. So how is Polk different than Trump? Okay, so here we go. If my screens would finally behave and stop moving around. See, it's still moving around. Stop moving around. I can't. Okay, anyways. Okay, so here we go. Again, it's having all these issues. I don't know what's going on. Okay, yep. Polk didn't just expand land. He also overhauled, basically, the government's finances, fulfilling another campaign promise. He said, we're going to do tariffs, and we're going to do them right. Unlike they had been doing before, because the United States was not as strong. Now, under Polk, after the Mexican-American War, after all the expansion, after working with the British, the British, that's when he finally said, okay, tariffs are higher. He did almost the exact same thing as Trump's doing today. So the legacy of Polk were these things. In just 4 years, the U.S. extended from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific, just like he promised. He fulfilled every goal he promised before. What was it? Texas, Oregon, all those other lands like New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, all that. That was given to them. And the third one, which was very interesting, he didn't run for re-election. His mission was complete. He's like, you know what? I've done everything I can. I'm done. And he ended. He did not go for president again. Really, with all that power, with all that success, you wouldn't run for president again? That's right. He didn't want to run for president. He promised 4 years. I'm done. I'm going to accomplish this in 4 years. I'm done. So, most effective president of one term? Yeah, I would have to say so. But expansion came at a cost. Okay, so here's the cost. The war with Mexico led to 15,000 American deaths and far more Mexican casualties. The new land reopened with fierce debate about slavery. He didn't solve slavery at this point. It's actually getting worse. So debates would basically explode until about 15 years later when a civil war starts up. All based on the expansion that's happening and which states become slave states. And let's not pass up the Native Americans. They continue to be displaced, removed, wiped out by the settlers moving west. So Polk might have made the map bigger, but also drew battle lines for the future. Native Americans, Civil War, slavery, all these different things. So let's wrap up a little bit. Let's go through what we talked about already today. Okay, so first, what did we learn today? We learned about the presidents that would create the United States. These 4 presidents, well, let's say 5, just because Andrew Jackson's part of that. These 5 presidents would give us the rest of the United States. Van Buren, he tried to slow the wagons, but he did not stop them. Harrison didn't last, but 31 days, though he wanted to go west. He lasted 31 days and then he was dead. Then you got Tyler, the vice president, comes in, pulled political gymnastics to secure Texas. So, who won it? Did Tyler win Texas or did Polk win Texas? Technically, it was Tyler because he did all the work. Polk he was in the presidency at the time that Congress finally passed it. And Polk, what did he do? He made manifest destiny real. Through diplomacy, war, and also a nonstop drive for him. He expanded America, but not without consequences. We talked about the consequences. 15,000 Americans died during the Mexican-American War. His presidency left the U.S. larger, richer, but also more divided. Because every piece of land basically raised a question: what would be a free state? What would be a slave state? The storm was coming, but it wasn't going to happen under Polk. So next week, we're going to be talking about, I think, the gold rush and a lot of the other expansions west. We're not at the Civil War yet. That's coming in 2 weeks. So stay tuned for 2 weeks from now. We're going to get you into what happens with the Civil War. But we have a lot to talk about as we get closer to that point. The storms are brewing. We're ready to get there. Thank you so much for joining me on this great Adventure Box podcast day. We will catch you next time. That will be, well, we'll be here Thursday talking about ancient China. That's right. But if you want expansion westward, we're going to be talking to you next Monday. So stay tuned for that, or catch us on our YouTube channel. If not their YouTube channel, we also have our historical conquest page that gives you all the rundowns, gives you animated people to look at, gives you living books, everything you could use right there. Now, to get the full extent, you got to join our Adventure Box Adventure Box Box. It's a monthly curriculum, comes to your doorstep every month with cards, with crafts, with something for everything from every different learning style. All 7 learning styles, we got something for you. So thanks so much for joining us. We will catch you next time in the expansion westward. Till then, take care, everyone. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.